Patch 1.6 was being waited for by a huge amount of the community and brings many much needed buffs and nerfs. I will take a look at these changes, comparing the old and new cards side by side, as well as a quick overview of the Spirit Blossom Festival. This is Patch 1.6 Buffs and Nerfs Overview. First up is Heimer. Heimer's card itself has not been changed, but the turret he summons have been changed. The Apex Fearsome turret has changed from the 4 mana turret to the 3 mana turret. The Stormlobber Overwhelm turret has changed from the 6 mana turret to the 4 mana turret. And finally, the Floor Be Gone Elusive turret has changed from the 3 mana turret to the 6 mana turret. Elusive was a particularly decisive keyword for Heimerdinger to have access to at 3 mana, creating frustrating gameplay when he spammed it, and giving Heimerdinger decks way too much speed and consistency in executing an often uninteractive win condition. Riot have adjusted several of Heimer's turrets to move more smoothly, to escalate his ability to create invasive threats, and to be better incisive casting for more expensive spells. Having Elusive at 6 mana is quite threatening, because previously you could accomplish the same amount of Elusive attacks with 2 3 mana spells, but costing you 1 more card to accomplish it. This means that it's now even more efficient in terms of value to get out an Elusive damage, but makes it weaker to removal and chump blocks, as now all the damage is on a single body. This makes Heimerdinger more of a control value orientated champion, as he was originally intended, rather than a mid-range one. This is a significant nerf to Heimer Vi, which is now probably a dead deck, but with a possibility of a more control version of it, which would be nice to see. Braum has had the power on both his cards nerfed by 1. Overall, Riot are pretty happy with the results of the Braum rework in patch 1.4, together with the changes to Anivia in 1.4. They've both provided a kind of viable Freylord champion option and made the region generally more playable. While making the changes to Braum, Riot did debate on the side of pushing his power level to make sure his rework was definitely an upgrade, and leave themselves rooms for the adjustments if he proved too powerful. In particular, Braum's 1 power baseline led to some certain very sharp matchups while providing a strong all-round value, so Riot decided to move his base power to 0 and reduce it to 1 at level 2 to make him less capable of immediately seizing control of the game. Braum had too much value removing early game threats on an aggro matchup, whilst summoning another body to further the trade. This makes him weaker without actually nerfing him to the oblivion, and he'll probably be no longer included in Anivia control decks, for example, so quite a nerf to that archetype. Ignavia has had health reduced from 2 to 1. Anivia and the Freylord are in a better spot since the changes in patch 1.4, but, like Braum, Riot want to follow up with their initial changes in the interest of long-term gameplay health. At her new lowered cost, copy Anivia strategies are significantly easier to pull off, but they didn't want to have a better balance to increase their agility and opportunities for counterplay, so particularly for slower decks looking to interact by removing Anivia. In Legends of Runeterra, there are basically removals which deal either 1, 2 or 3 damage. Now they egg dice to all the removals. This is quite a nerf, but generally not too impactful. Relentless Pursuit has changed from a fast spell to a slow spell. Riot actually wanted to make this change for quite some time. Rally is generally intended as a slow speed effect, but this nerf is regardless of its design intent, and other massive changes have previously taken kind of priority. Relentless Pursuit is often cast as slow speed and can be overly potent or confusing when used in response to a round opening spell or a unit play effect, for example, or even in combat to further that. This change also includes Lucian's Relentless Pursuit as his champion spell card. Although this is a nerf on paper, Relentless Pursuit is more often already casted at a slow speed anyway, so this means you can no longer cast it while receiving attack to get priority and attack after right away, so a very minor nerf, but still very viable card. Arena Bookie has had its cost reduced to 2 and health increased to 2. With the adjustments to other Noxus 2 drops and some Dredger's cost change, which I'm actually going to discuss later in this video, Arena Bookie has now a more realistic home at 2 mana. And it's actually an opportunity to give Noxus some power within the more synergy driven strategies. I think this is a really interesting change, and this alone will revive the discard archetype, I think, on top of all the other changes in this patch. Basilisk Rider has its power reduced from 5 to 4. While Riot like the Overwhelm base Noxus decks being in a better spot, Basilisk Rider is simply overperforming since its bump to its health in patch 1.4, and Riot are making this follow-up adjustment to kind of rein in some of that newfound strength. A 20% nerf on its attack, so usually 1 damage is all you need to finish the game as aggro, is actually quite a significant change just to tone down the kind of outperforming archetype, such as Darius aggro, which has become really popular lately. Crimson Disciple is having her effect nerfed to only deal 1 damage to the enemy Nexus when it survives damage. Several cheap Noxus units are both effective plays on the curve and have Nexus damage effects that make them powerful to reach tools in the late game. So this lets Noxus get ahead early whilst following up a ton of close out potential, providing a kind of level of consistency that places significant strain on the rest of the metagame. So by weakening some of this late game damage potential, Riot are hoping to unlock other strategies by giving them more breathing room in stabilising kind of versus Noxus aggression that's everywhere at the moment. So Crimson Disciple is a particular culprit of this, and reducing her damage output should allow more favourable exchanges when interacting and reduce her combo kind of potential. So this means that half the damage is being dealt that we're used to. So this is now a almost dead card. Maybe that's a little bit harsh for the aggro archetypes, but she'd still find herself at home in some synergy driven archetypes such as with Swain. Legion Grenadier is having his health increase from 1 to 2, but Last Breath effect nerfed to only deal 1 to the enemy Nexus. Riot have also reduced Legion Grenadier's Nexus effect for the similar reasons to what I just explained for Disciple, whilst also buffing its health to kind of allow additional flexibility with the card. So this is actually one of the changes I predicted on my previous video, but the increase to the health I guess caught me by a little bit of surprise, which is actually fine. This is still definitely a viable card for aggro, and is simply not OP anymore, but still a very good option. Flash of Brilliance is having its cost nerfed from 3 to 4. In the past, Riot have adjusted Flash of Brilliance to make it more satisfying and effective when used with Heimerdinger, but the potential to create multiple free ones, regardless of the keyword, without the window for interaction is proving to be an environment warping effect over time. This change means that Flash will always have a cost and adjust how it interacts with Heimerdinger's new turret progression, creating overwhelm turrets that allow great opportunities for counterplay through blocking. This card is already just run for Heimerdinger based decks, and with the nerf to him and also Flash of Brilliance, this seems almost like a little bit of an overkill. If you spend 1 mana to generate a random card which is not optimal, it's actually quite a weak effect, and will just be run in synergy decks which currently seem to be very weak with this latest patch. So maybe a dead card, but we'll see, time will tell. Sump Dredger is having its cost increase from 2 to 3, and its effect buff to also draw 1 card when summoned. This new pattern for Sump Dredger provides it with more satisfying usability, and gives discard decks access to more consistent card flow. It also provides Piltover and Zorn decks overall with more diverse options for card selection. Zornite Urchin is having her effect changed to also draw 1 card when summoned. This is for the exact same reasons as I just described with Sump Dredger, to help give discard decks access to more consistent card flow and provide Piltover and Zorn with more diverse options. So Legends of Runeterra is actually borrowing the rummaging effect from Magic the Gathering. This is a good change that I really actually like, but it currently lacks the synergy needed for this to be good. It needs a much wider discard overall in my opinion. Shadow Assassin is having her power reduced from 2 to 1. So Shadow Assassin's actually been a near auto include for many Iona decks for some time, as a consistent utility piece providing advantage, defense, and the ability to steal games with elusive attacks. She provides significant power and resilience to elusive strategies, whilst also being an ideal tool for slower Iona decks. It's, to be honest, just overrepresented in ways that's basically a bit limiting. So this change preserves some of her strengths that we quite like, whilst lowering her aggressive output. In my opinion, I think this is a dead card for the purposes that it was used for now, but will still be run in control Iona decks that we don't really see too much of right now, so you're going to see it popping up in different places. Steel Tempest is having its cost decrease from 3 to 2. Riot wanted to give Ionian strategy synergy cards some love in the wake of the core region's nerfs, and make Steel Tempest a more appealing option for control and stun-based Iona decks. This change also includes Yasuo's Relentless Pursuit as his champion spell card. I very much like this buff, and it's very deserved. This makes this card from unplayable to somewhat of a synergy-driven strategy with Yasuo, so don't be surprised if you see a lot of Yasuo decks now pop up. River Shaper is having his health increase from 1 to 2. As mentioned with Steel Tempest just now, Riot would love to boost the Ionian synergy cards that are partially balanced with other nerfs. And River Shaper was basically just too fragile to use before to chase the dreams of multiple procs, as Riot put it in their own words. So before, this card was very weak, and this could be used in the beginning of some kind of control Iona decks now, with all the reasons that we've just mentioned, so you might start seeing him to pop up in the early game. It's finally happened. Will of Iona is having its cost increase from 4 to 5. Will of Iona is a staple spell that provides Iona decks with a great deal of interaction and utility. Like Shadow Assassin, it's an extremely common card across multiple Ionian strategies, and is especially powerful on both elusive and control-based Iona decks. Its usability and efficiency kind of restricted a variety of champions and strategies across the meta, and lowering the efficiency of this card should open up both more Iona decks and those playing against them. The community cried for help, and the balance hammer came down. This is a pretty self-explanatory change, and still a very good card, but no longer broken. Golden Narwhal is having its cost reduced from 3 to 2, and health decreased from 4 to 3. Golden Narwhal's drawback was just too much to overcome for its cost in most decks, and this change streamlines it as more of a niche option, and helps facilitate the accompanying changes to Hunting Fleet that I'm about to discuss. Hunting Fleet is having its cost changed to 4, and power decreased to 6, and health decreased to 6. Hunting Fleet was simply too costly and slow for its value proposition, so Riot are moving it a bit down the curve. These are pretty minor changes now that they are more aggressive, but I don't think they'll be a standard viable option, and probably be better in the odd kind of expedition deck, for example. Once again, I could not have done this video without the help of Bomber TV. He's a Masters tier player, and a lot of the insights for this video have been provided by him about whether it will have a big impact on the meta or not, so please check him out. His channel is currently linked in the card in the top right. There's some really interesting buffs and nerfs this patch. What do you guys think will have the biggest impact on the meta? Please leave your comments below, I would love to hear what you think.